when my wife and I were expecting our first child, I got a phone call from my wife's family. She comes from a Sephardi family, and some of you might know by Sephardim, the minhag is to name the grandson after the grandfather who's still alive. Now by Chassidim, that's Yehareg Vel Yaver. You never do that. So I really wanted to do it for my wife's family, but it wasn't my minhag, and I didn't know what to do. So I was talking to my father-in-law, who is the sweetest Jew alive, and I said, Abba, I'll tell you what. Let's go over to the Gadol Hadar. Let's ask him what to do. So I lived in Eretz Yisrael at the time, and we went over to Rav Chaim Kanievsky. So we drove down to Bnei Brak, walked into Rav Chaim, and I never saw Rav Chaim laugh. I presented the Shaila, and I said, you know, my wife is expecting, and the doctors said it's going to be a boy, and we don't know what to do, what to name. And in Yiddish, he laughs and he says, haha, and efshir vet zayin a meidela, and maybe it's going to be a girl. You won't have the issue. So then I really got nervous because I wanted a boy, and the doctor said a boy, and Rav Chaim said a girl. But okay, it turned out Rav Chaim didn't want to answer the shaila because it wasn't relevant yet. Anyways, the end of the story was our son was born. And I didn't want to go back to Rav Chaim simply because I heard that he said no to somebody else. And once he says no, I can't do it. So I went to a different Rav. He said, you can add a name. Okay, I wanted peace. So I took the easy way out. I named my son Yosef, which is my father-in-law's name. And I added a name after a dead grandfather too, to be Yoitza Shnei Shitas Kalashitas. I named him Yosef Chaim. The Sephardim might tell it's after the Ben Ish Chai. The Ashkenazim might tell it's after Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld. And everybody's very happy. By the way, a few years later, I bought a program called Bar Ilan. You could type in names and see the gematria, which pasuk it's the gematria of. And when I got that program, I told my wife, what if we type in Yoel, which is my name, Varachel, which is her name? I said, what if we type both names in? What would happen? She says, let's try it. We tried it. And it's a pasuk in Parshas Vayechi, the exact gematria of Hine bincha Yosef ba. So I was eating by my Rebbe's house, Rabbi Arieli. And he asked me, he says, what's your son's name? I learned in the mirror at the time. And Friday night, my wife and I and my son, he said, what's your son's name? I said, my son's name is Yosef Chaim, and I proceeded to tell him the entire story. So he became serious, and he says, let me tell you a story. He says, when my wife was pregnant, he said to me, she had a very difficult pregnancy. And the doctors, they weren't sure if she'd have more children, and it was a boy. And I wanted to name my son after my father. My wife, we weren't sure what's going to happen in the future. She wanted to name this son, this child, after her father, who happened to be Rabbi Arieli's Rebbe, Reb Nachum Partzovich, who was a son of Reb Chaim Shmulevitz. So they didn't know what to do. So Rav Asher said to me, he said, I went to Rav Elyashiv. I went to ask the Gadol Hadar. So he went to ask Rav Elyashiv, and Rav Elyashiv says, what do you mean? It's Allah and Shulchan Aruch. You have to name your son after your father, because kavod aviv koydem lekavod chamev. Your father's honor comes before the honor of your father-in-law. So here's what Rav Asher tells Rav Elyashiv, and with this I'll end. This is unbelievable. By the way, this is the best shir that I ever heard from my Rebbe, Rabbi Arieli. He said to me, he said, I turned to Rav Elyashiv and he said, yeah. Ich weiß the halach in Shulchan Aruch. I know the halach in Shulchan Aruch. I came here because I'm afraid to go against the Shulchan Aruch, and I really want to be mevater. I want to give to my wife. I just need a heter from the Rav to go against the psak of Shulchan Aruch. That's called giving. He could have had the trump card. Come back to his wife. Rabbi Asher said, it's my name. That's it, Shalom Yisrael. Yeah, whatever Shalom is worth. That Shalom is not worth anything, but whatever it's worth for, Shalom Yisrael. His wife would have bit her lips, and that's it. He said, no. I asked Rav Elyashiv because I wanted to give. I had a protruding knob. She had a void, and I was able to fill it, and I was eager to fill it. My only concern was not to go against the Shulchan Aruch. Tonight, as we walk out of here, And by the way, this event is beautiful, very unique. I've never been at such an event. This is amazing, by the way, and I'm looking forward to shoot some hoops downstairs after this. But before we go, I want you to ask yourself one question. And with this, I'm ending. Do you know what your protruding knob is? In the context of your relationship with your wife, with your husband, with your children, can you identify the koiches, the skill, the talent that Hashem has given you? And can you be compassionate to somebody else's hole? And do you have the courage to fill it and make that connection? May Hashem help all of us. Should be zoicha to ois shalom b'mroima v'yasu shalom aleinu. Should be zoicha to be as mashiach tzedkenu b'meiru b'meinu amen. Thank you so much for inviting me.